the number one gravity you can have on your life in any direction is the people you hang around with. And everyone understands this. They say that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Everybody knows that, but then they don't curate their circle. If you hang around with people who are free thinking and perspicacious and use their minds and look around and come to their own conclusions, and they're doing well and they're working hard and they're dedicated and they're rich, you're not going to be the only idiot. You're going to end up adopting some of their qualities, and they're not going to talk to you anymore, right? So you're going to have to. So I think the most important thing you can do is just make sure you have a social circle of people around you you trust. Life as a man is pretty shit, and you're going to feel shit for a pretty large percentage of the time. But you're only going to ever escape that if you just perform regardless. You have to perform when you feel bad. As a man, you can't say, I will perform when I feel good. It doesn't work that way, because our heads are too complicated and life's too complicated. There's too much on our shoulders, and we have too much stress and too much pressure. Our heads are fucked. You have to be the kind of person who says, I perform regardless. I didn't miss a single day's training. I didn't miss a please. I didn't miss a thank you. I'm not saying I was happy. I'm saying I did exactly what I was supposed to do. But I don't think that sitting around being scared of it is going to help. I think the best thing I can do is the same things I would do if this wasn't happening, which is train hard, work hard, take care of the people who are close to me, love the people close to me, be a good person, help people, smile. What else am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to sit around and fucking mope like a fucking baby? It is what it is. And I think we're designed to be ungrateful because that's the only way we achieve anything. Because otherwise we become extremely complacent with the basics. If the people you care about are alive and you have food, why do anything else? Why do you even want a fast car? This is a genuine question. Why do any of us want fast cars? There's speed limits and they're a headache. But we want one because no one else can have one. Why did Alexander the Great conquer all? Why did he conquer as much as he conquered? Why didn't he just take the town and say, I've got a few women, I've got the town square. It's enough, isn't it? No, we're genuinely going to be ungrateful for everything that we actually have, that we hold dear, because it has, especially men, because we were evolved to a degree, or there's something inside of our mind that make us want more and more and more and more. This is how we operate. And all men are the same. There's no subscriber number level. There's no subscriber number you'll get to where you say that's enough. You'll say, just get a little bit more. Same with money.
Greed.
Yeah, greed. We're greedy. If you're appreciative of the things you have, you're not greedy. And maybe some people are. There are people who are extremely appreciative for the things they have, but then nobody knows their name. The people whose names you can mention are the people who, to a degree, have that burning desire inside of them that can't be satisfied. Why do I have to be 4-time kickboxing world champion? Why is 1 not enough? Right? Why did Conor McGregor need 2 belts? Why is 1 not enough? Like, all the men you can name had that inside of them. So to a degree, you're going to be slightly ungrateful for things around you until you lose them.
What do you think that is? Like, feed them bread and water and they will be distracted. The people who get paid the most on this planet is people who distract the most people without living their own life. Sports teams, film actresses, actors. Yeah. Because people are distracted. People do genuinely go home and watch their TV and they're just programmed not to achieve anything, and it's sad. It's not that they're bad people, it's just all they know. Like, why do you think this happens? Why do you think people are so dumbed down that they can't open their eyes and see the world a bit differently?
But I think it's breaking. I think the internet has broken it. I think to say maybe 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago, it was at the height of the mind control of the populace. But I actually think we're in the middle of a spiritual revolution. I think that if you were to go 10 years ago and ask people on the street, does the news lie to you? Maybe 20% would say yes, and 80% would say no. But I think it'd probably be around 50-50 now. I'd like to believe it's around 50-50. Most people are starting to understand that everything is a fucking lie. It's all a lie, it's all programming, it's all garbage. And the internet has given all these different points of views and and I think MSM is becoming defunct. I think it's becoming less interesting. I'll say right now that me and you will sit here in this room with a few cameras and millions of people will watch this. More than watch Newsnight. It's crazy. So the world is changing, and what they're going to do to counteract that, I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps they're going to try and snipe particular characters who won't become controlled opposition. I don't know. And try and take them out and throw them in a Romanian jail cell. We're going to see. But I think life has many different stages. And I think that at the beginning, especially, and for a long period, you learn. You do learn the whole way through life, but you learn. And once you've learned enough, I think you get to a stage, and I'd like to feel like I'm almost there. Maybe you're 30, maybe end of your 30s. You've learned enough to implement all of the lessons and live a good life. And then I think once you get older, let's say 60 something plus, you don't live for yourself anymore. You live vicariously through the people you care about. That's what I believe. I think that by the time I'm 60, I'm going to be more interested in what my kids are doing than what I'm doing. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not 60. I'm just guessing. But I think that's what life's all about. I think it goes through different stages. And I've never really seen, and the reason I say this is, the old people I know who are on their deathbeds, they're only sad to die because they're going to miss me. They're not sad for themselves. I don't know if you ever noticed that. They're like, I'm going to miss you. What are you going to be okay? They're worried about you. Like they're living through you so much. They're so vicariously living through you that their concern is for you. They've lived enough. So they kind of get to a point where like, well, I don't want to live. I don't care about me, but are you going to be okay? It's kind of weird. But it was the same thing for me in jail. I'd call my mom and say, are you okay? Is this okay or that? And she goes, I can't believe you call me from a jail and I'm trying to ask if you're okay. And you're saying I'm fine. And all you care about is me. Yeah, because I'm my man. It's kind of what I'm supposed to do, right? Take care of you.
Yeah,
I do think that a man is happiest when he does have control. And I'm not saying control in a negative way. I'm saying that to a degree, he wears the trousers and he provides and he takes care of her and he pays the bills, etc. I think traditional gender roles exist for a reason. I don't think they've come from nowhere. I think that humans naturally fall into their gender roles when life is very difficult. And in olden times, life was much more difficult, so gender roles were much more defined. And now life's become a bit easier. They've tried to become blurred. But certainly a good relationship is where a man's a man and a woman's a woman. And there is a mutual respect there. And I think that, I don't struggle to have happy relationships besides the one thing you perhaps just said. Sometimes they'll be complaining about something and I'll know they're right. But I'll be like, who can't complain at me? I'm the top G. And I have to be like, you know what? You're right on this one. I'll give you this one. Why would I adopt a mindset that makes me less competitive? I have plenty of enemies. People are out to get me. We've proved that. Why would I adopt a mindset that allowed me to be less competitive in the heat of battle? If you're going to go into a war, you want to be as competitive as possible physically and mentally. And you look at every war zone. You look at any war zone on earth. I guarantee the soldiers are religious. I bet they believe in God. If you got shot, you'd start praying. If you were on that submarine underneath the ocean, show me an atheist that wouldn't pray. Show me an atheist that wouldn't pray in that submarine. When shit gets hard, you need God. Do you think the news exists to inform you? Do you think the news, which is free and everywhere, is made by nice people so you know what's going on? You, Mr. Nobody at home. They really want you to know what's happening. That's why they give you this nice news channel. You're fucking dumb. You're out of your fucking mind? They don't give a shit about you. You don't know anything about how the world works. The only things they show you are bullshit things you're not allowed to, that don't affect anything. They distract you with garbage constantly. And if they're going to tell you something as a fact, it's a lie. So anyone who believes any of this shit left, there are some people which are just beyond saving. Pure matrix agents. But anyone who's believing anything the MSM says, I'm truly at the point now, if I watch the news and they say something, I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe a word. Like even the most basic things. Today, this happened there. Nah. I don't believe a word they say. All they do is lie. I think we're in the middle of a spiritual awakening, and I think the awakening will push towards truth. And I think that truth is always a good thing. However, when the truth is shown, especially regarding a lot of the systems we have currently organizing and controlling the world, the systems will no longer be trusted and they'll break down. And there's going to be a degree of chaos. There's going to be a transitionary period. Because once people truly understand how the judicial system works and the media system works and the financial system works and the political system works, if people knew these things, it would be over. So they'd all have to change. I think they're all going to have to change. What they'll change into, hopefully they'll be more based on truth and transparency. And I believe that'll be a good thing overall. I think that if we have a world which is truth-based, we're going to do well. So I do think perhaps we have some hard times ahead, but I'd like to believe that in the end, the world will be good. But we're gonna have to see.
Own it. As a man, if you believe in something, just own it.
I agree.
Don't stop being a pussy, man. Just own it.
I agree.
If you put yourself at the forefront, then you've got respect.
Yeah.
Because you don't become a man if you're too scared to say something in case you lose something, because it's irrelevant. You can always build it back.
Yep.
I always say this, people get cancelled, but I always believe they can cancel themselves, because there's always something you can do to then come back.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
It's a defeated attitude. They've cancelled me, so I'll just quit. It's not the case. Tommy Robinson speaks very highly of you.
Yep.
Another man, what the fuck's in the water in Luton? But two men, Tommy Robinson's one of the most famous men in the UK. He came to the forefront. His mind has changed.
Yep.
I didn't agree with a lot of his views. Me and him were back and forth back in the day.
Yep.
Now he's became a good friend because he's understanding life. I don't know if, like you say, with all the shit you go through, I wouldn't say it humbles you, but it makes you question the world that, okay, I've got a platform, I need to I can do better.
Yep.
What's the connection? How does you and Tommy Robinson come about?
And I do believe that you can't save people who don't want to be saved, and you can't make people think a certain way who don't want to be open-minded or understand your points. And I also believe that the strong conquer the weak. I think that's a universal law. Even if you look up into space, right? Large planets attract smaller planets and destroy them. That's how it works. I think if you're going to have a weak culture or a weak mindset or even a weak religion, eventually it will perish, and that only the strong survive. And no matter how hard one individual champions a particularly weak ideology, it doesn't make a difference if the ideology itself is not strong. The most dangerous people on the planet are the complicit people. Compliance. It's complicity that's dangerous. It's the complicity that allowed all the Jews to be murdered. They just comply. Oh, well, it's not me and it's not my problem. The TV said, the radio told me. So much has been done in the name of compliance. It takes bravery to do the right thing. Yeah. It always takes bravery to do the right thing. And it takes bravery to do anything of merit. It takes bravery to love somebody. It's very easy to just run around and fuck girls and not love any of them. That doesn't make you a hero. You're a hero if you love someone who you know can break your heart, who might leave. That's bravery. It's hard to do the right thing all the time. It's hard to be with somebody, and I'm talking about relationships now because it's just an easy way to apply it. It's hard to be with somebody and sit down and both of you admit you both did wrong and you want to make it work. That's hard. Most people take the opposite. What's the opposite route? Ego? No, I'm perfect and I don't do anything wrong and you do everything wrong. But then what does it lead to in the end? I believe in the end it will lead to misery. I think that's where a lot of people end up. They leave the relationship they have. They think the grass is greener. They get over there, realize it isn't. Try and come back, left, right, boom, misery. I believe that life, the purpose of it is to learn, and it is to struggle, and it is to suffer. And I don't think that we are put on the planet to be happy. I actually genuinely believe we are put on the planet to learn things and to struggle and to genuinely suffer. I think that life is suffering. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. I think that if you want to be any kind of man of caliber, your life needs to be full of suffering. If you don't have that story of pain, you don't have a story at all. It's just the way the world works. You're not going to be a credible man who is respected if you don't have a bunch of pain and problems in your past. If you wake up and you're born as a man and everything goes exactly to the way you want it to, and everything's nice and easy, nobody's going to respect you, and you're not even going to be happy yourself. I believe that also the masculine imperative not only is to give, like we said earlier, but it is to overcome struggle. We look at struggles and we look at problems and we want to overcome them. You just said it yourself. I want more followers. I want to get bigger. It's a problem. I want to fix it. I got to beat it. It's inside of us. So I think that all these bad things that happen to us are actually a blessing. We should be glad for all of them. We should be proud for them. I'm glad God put me in jail. That's the mental model I've decided, because I refuse to believe in anything that takes power away from me. And I believe that I'll be the most powerful version of myself if I am happy that I went to jail. And if by some miracle I lose this case and they put me in jail again, the mental model I will adopt is, good, okay, God has something he needs me to learn, so I'm going to go back to the dungeon. And that's just the mental model I'm going to adapt, because I think that's the best way for me to compete and be the best version of myself. So a human, I think, is a vessel designed to suffer, to become a best version of itself so it can pass on lessons to the fullest of its capability to its offspring before its ultimate demise onto the final stage, or the next stage of this life, or whatever lives we live. So we'll see.
Why do you think so many relationships are breaking down now? So many divorces. I know the stats have come through that women in their 30s, I think it's like 50% are not having kids anymore. Yeah. And the stats are by the time they're 70, it's they're going to be their biggest regret. Like, why do you think it's all
it's
kind
social
of
media,
backwards?
it's outside influences.
Do you think
it's
so?
Social media, it's outside influences, and not just outside influences from social media. It can be the girl's friends. If I have a girlfriend, I say, you do not insult me to your friends ever, because you think it's just venting, but overall it's going to bite us. Because you're going to name, every time we argue, you're never going to name the times we don't argue. Eventually they're going to start saying I'm a piece of shit, and eventually you're going to listen to them. Just don't say bad things about me to anybody. What's the point? It's like, if you want therapy, talk to me. A lot of it comes down to basic communication and ego. Like I said earlier, it takes bravery to sit down and say, look, I think you're completely wrong. I think I'm completely right. But I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to be egotistical about this. Let's discuss this. Let me try and understand your point of view, and let's fix it. And it's much easier just to be egotistical about things. It's ego that destroys relationships, and I don't believe in the long run that that's the right thing to do and the smart thing to do. And I also know that the grass is always greener where you water it. It's not greener anywhere else. The amount of most women or men, they won't make any effort for their partner, but if they break up, then they'll fucking get in shape and put on the cologne and look their best to go try and get a new one. Should have done it for her. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? The grass is always greener where you water it, and I try and keep that in mind as well. And I don't really have a problem with relationships or anything, but I feel like I'm in a unique position because I have a really big battle on my hands, and any woman who's with me understands that the fight I have is so large that her job is cheerleader and she does her very best and we get along quite well. But I'm not the person people think I am. They think, oh, top G, da da da. If a woman has a problem and she comes to me respectfully, I'll absolutely listen to her and try and help her. Of course I would. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. In the Patrick Bet-David interview, you spoke about your testosterone, which is massive for men. Testosterone has dropped for men. Men are becoming weaker, softer. We understand that. Why is your test so high?
Because I think your body and your mind are linked. And my mind's constantly at war. I'm constantly stressed and people are trying to hurt me. And I think that if you are waking up every day and checking your phone to see which government agencies want you gone and which problems you have and which enemies of yours are gaining ground, and you have to find a way to combat against all of this, when you have the British Broadcasting Corporation trying to spread lies about you and you have to get more views than they do, than the BBC, your mind's at constant war. And I think your body reacts to that. I think if you constantly feel like you're in a fight, then your body's going to react. Why would your body not give your mind what it believes you need? If you live a soft life or an easier life, it'll probably go down. But if you live a hard life, it'll probably shoot up. And I guess it's just a reflection of the lifestyle I live and the way my mind is operating and the pressure I'm under and the stress I'm under. And that's also the reason it's dropping overall as a whole is not just because lives are getting easier, it's also because of the mental models they're instilling inside of men and children, like we're saying. We're not teaching them to fight back against their enemies, which would lead to an increase in testosterone. We're teaching them to just collapse and comply and be complicit with their enemies, which does the absolute opposite. It reduces it. So a lot of it, I believe, is mindset. I believe it's just mindset. My mind is at war, so my body is ready for war. My advice is that one day you're going to look back on all the things you're currently going through and you're going to be glad they happened. If you have the right mental model, if you change how you think, one day you will look back and be glad they happened. And the most fantastic thing about changing the way you think is, regardless of what people say to you or despite the fact they tell you it's not true, I promise you, one of the only things on the planet you can control is what you think. You can't control the weather, can't control other people, can't control if your heart stops. You can't even keep it beating. But you can control what you think. I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done. And if you change the way you view things, you change the perspective, you'll be happy that it's happened to you. Sometimes you can have an event or it's like a prism. You can have something and it's all about the perspective you view it from. And I think if you are malleable enough in your mind and disciplined enough to instill the correct software at the correct time to make sure that you're as competitive as possible, you can take any situation or scenario that you're going through and find the positive in it and use it to make you a better person, from the absolute bottom to perhaps the top of the top. And I think you learn a lot of lessons on the way. And you need the juxtaposition to even enjoy anything at the top anyway. So I'm so glad for the bad times. There's nothing fun about being rich besides talking about when you were poor. The only point in buying a $10,000 steak is so you can sit with your brother and go, this is not worth 10 grand. I can't believe we spent 10 grand on this. We never had 10 grand in our savings account ever. And then we can both laugh about how poor we were. Otherwise, why be rich? If you were born rich, I think being born rich would be one of the worst experiences. I think one of the worst lives.
How so?
Because you have nothing, you're never going to truly ever appreciate or respect money. Money's never going to make you happy. You're never going to have those stories to compare anything to. You're just going to expect for everything to be done for you. And if heaven forbid something goes wrong and then you end up poor, you won't be able to deal with it. Imagine being rich till you're like born rich and you're rich your whole life. I'm talking about you've been on private jets as a kid, your parents had money, and then at 42 it all goes wrong and now you're a brokey. How would you even handle that mental shift of I can't pay the council tax? Imagine it. Like I don't think you could be prepared to ever go broke. I don't think you'd appreciate anything. If you look at all these rich kids who go to these rich schools or these politicians' kids or whatever, they're all drug addicts, they're all weirdos. It's just, I don't think it's a healthy mind model to be born and just be spoiled. What do they say in the Matrix? They say the reason we have recreated the world at the end of 1999, the first Matrix was a utopia and the human mind rejected it. When we made everything perfect, you didn't want it. The human mind rejected it and you wouldn't listen. We had to give you all this struggle and all these problems for you to accept the program. I think it's the same. If you were born rich, I think it'd be an awful existence. I don't think you'd ever, what are you struggling for? What are you working for? What are you striving for? For what? You don't, and I think a man is different when he gets to that position where he has no safety net and he has to pull it off. You've been there, I've been there. I have to pay the rent. Oh, I have to pay the rent, let me borrow from dad. I have to pay the rent, let me borrow from my, no, like I have to, tomorrow I need $2,000. Today I have fucking zero. There's nobody I can borrow from. And that's a small example. There's been much bigger examples. I don't want to send a podcast. You're a different kind of man when you've had to pull it off and you've suffered the consequences of failure, or you find a way to pull it off. It's not the same if you just call daddy, is it? My father said, I allow manipulation to find out where my enemy wants me to go, and then I use my mind to break the trap and punish the perpetrators. And I think that that is one of the biggest life lessons I would like to also teach to people around me. When someone is trying to teach you something or trying to tell you something, you need to first identify why they want you to believe it. Secondly, you need to identify how you're going to act once you believe it. Then you need to work out and decide, does this person have your best interests at heart? And if you go through those three things in order, you'll be surprised how many ideas you're told that you don't want to believe anymore.